It all started 300 years after the Great Disaster. Magic spiraled out of control. The demon race descended from the skies and began a long, brutal war against humanity. After that war, the human population dropped sharply, and society collapsed. 10 powerful people awakened great magic and created huge protective barriers. These barriers held back the invading demons, letting humanity survive for a while. Humanity then entered a new age. When people reached adulthood, each person awakened a profession. The 10 original powerhouses turned their professions into inherited professions. Each of these inherited professions could exist in only one person at a time, becoming pillars for all of humanity. At Faihuan City, the sky was bright and clear. It was the year 335, April 1st, on the Cataclysm calendar. The profession awakening ceremony was about to start. A cart stopped in front of tall buildings, and someone called out that they had arrived. A young man named Feng stepped down from the vehicle and thanked his uncle Zhang. The large plaza was crowded. People gathered for the annual awakening test. Feng looked around in amazement, thinking the annual awakening test truly lives up to its reputation. It's packed. When people reached adulthood, they took the awakening test. Professions had different ranks: N rank, R rank, S rank, SR rank, and UR rank. Higher rank professions had stronger combat power, and those who awakened rare professions could directly enter elite academies. Young people walked among tall statues of past profession holders, praying for good luck. Feng watched them quietly. A voice from the crowd prayed to one of the statues, asking the great berserker to bless them so they could awaken at least an SR rank profession. But another loud voice came from the crowd, telling the people in front to hurry because the speaker's test was coming soon. Nearby, Feng stood silently watching the line. A girl prayed toward a statue, saying that she admired Lady Tianu since childhood and asking her for a blessing to awaken the most noble inherited profession. Hearing this, others thought it was funny and wondered who would daydream like that in broad daylight. Seeing those students, Feng then turned to someone beside him and asked what the people were doing. The other person looked surprised and asked Feng if he didn't know. He explained that there was a rumor that this year's test would produce a new inherited profession holder. He added that there were currently 4 vacant inherited professions, so it was natural that everyone was praying hard. Hearing that, Feng felt that everyone's eagerness to advance seemed stronger than usual this year. To him, that meant business would be good. Suddenly, bright magical fireworks burst in the sky, signaling the start of the testing. Someone shouted for everyone to hurry because the tests had officially begun. Inside the hall, the examiners read out the results one by one. They announced that Lin Hu awakened an R-rank profession at level 10 with 13 magic power. Then they reported Winza as an N-rank profession at level 8 with 8 magic power. After that, they announced Ji Fei, who awakened an S-rank profession at level 34 with 55 magic power, and Ji Fei was accepted. A student with short hair was shocked to hear that Ji Fei actually had 55 magic power, and he wished he had that much magic power too. When Feng heard that, he immediately held up a bright red tomato and asked that short-haired man if he would like a tomato that could increase magic power. The short-haired man looked shocked at the offer. He asked in disbelief if it was really a tomato that increased magic power. Feng explained that he was a spirit plant doctor and this tomato was a premium variety he had carefully cultivated. He also said that each tomato increased magic power by 5% within 5 minutes, and that each one cost only 5 gold coins. He then showed a bag filled with different spirit plants, tomatoes, long cucumbers, sweet potatoes and small yellow beans. He said that he also had hunger sweet potatoes that kept someone full for a whole day, fat-burning cucumbers, and strongman beans that increased attack power by 10%. Hearing that, 2 people nearby whispered among themselves. One of them wondered if this was a scam because he had never heard of spirit plants like these. Another person questioned how something could increase magic power and help someone lose weight. The short-haired man holding the tomato told them to just buy one and try it for themselves. He said they could check the buff effect after eating it, and complained that he was tired of eating energy bars every day. Feng leaned forward with a confident smile. He announced that it was first come, first served. He said the quantity was limited, and once they were gone, they were gone. Then he added that the first customer could try one for free. Hearing that, the short-haired man stared at the tomato in his hand with a doubtful face. He looked tense and unsure. He then took a bite of the tomato. His face was still hesitant, but he bit into it anyway. Right after eating it, his expression changed completely. He clenched his fists with excitement as a bright glow of energy appeared behind him. He shouted that his magic power really increased and that his body felt lighter. A blond young man nearby stared in shock and asked if he was seeing things because he knew that the spirit plant vegetables were developed by the Extraordinary Academy's agricultural department, and he heard they were usually supplied to SR rank professions. Feng told that man that this was a special promotion for the test convention since everyone here had the potential to become academy students. Hearing that, the blond man's eyes lit up, and he quickly asked Feng to wrap all of the vegetables for him. Hearing that, a small crowd gathered around to buy those vegetables and grew angry. One person complained loudly, saying he was here first. Another shouted that he wanted 10. Someone else praised the tomatoes, calling them extraordinary produce. Another excited person said that his magic power really did get a boost. Feng watched the scene with a small smile. He thought about his situation. He knew that even though he had only a farmer profession, ever since he maxed his level, all the vegetables and fruits he grew gave beneficial buffs. He admitted to himself that he used some marketing tactics, but the effects of his produce were real. After selling all of his vegetables, Feng sat alone in front of a certain shop. He was packing his bag quietly and was about to leave but suddenly noticed someone coming toward him. When he looked up, he saw that same blond man from before approaching. Seeing that blond man, Feng listed the things he sold: chestnut pumpkin seeds for 5 gold, flour rhino manure for 7 gold, grape wine making sugar for 10 gold, and some magic power boosting potions worth 257 gold. After listing everything, he handed over 10 gold to that blond man and said it was his payment. This blond man was Feng's friend who helped him sell his vegetables by boasting about them as a customer. As the blond man accepted the coins, Feng complained that he didn't have enough money left to buy premium fertilizer for improving his fields. The blond man thanked him, calling him Brother Feng. He said the spirit plants were very useful and asked why he didn't grow more. Hearing that, Feng got annoyed and hit the blond man, asking if he thought growing spirit plants with such effects was easy. Later, the two of them walked together under a clear blue sky. The blond man said it was a shame because Feng had high talent since childhood, yet he was only... But before he could complete his words, Feng interrupted and told him to hurry home, saying Aunt Zhou was waiting for him. Then Feng walked alone under a bridge, thinking about what that blond man was saying. Although people called him a genius since childhood, he only awakened an N-rank farmer profession. He recalled that when he went to burn paper offerings for his deceased father, who had been an archdruid, he was scared his father might jump out of the coffin. Thinking positively, he said that maybe this was karmic balance, since he had a herbalist mother and an archdruid father, yet he became a farmer. But in truth, he was satisfied with his peaceful life. He felt relieved that he did not have to go to the battlefield and die like his father, and that his mother would not have to worry. As he walked forward, he said that even if it was only for his mother's sake, he must take care of their family farm properly. But suddenly a single drop of water fell on his face. He looked up in confusion. He asked himself why it was raining when the sky was clear, but wind suddenly swirled around him and a man came falling toward him from the sky. That man fell toward the street with a terrified face. Feng watched in shock as the man crashed into the ground. He panicked and wondered what was happening. He asked if the wall had broken or if demons had invaded. But before he could understand anything, that fallen man lying on the ground suddenly woke up. He was surrounded by broken stone pieces. His bag and a lantern lay beside him. The injured man on the ground held a small device tightly. With panic in his eyes, he spoke quickly that the inherited profession holder, Necromancer He Shao, had betrayed them and was trying to transfer his profession inheritance to the demon race. That injured man thought to himself that he needed to notify someone as soon as possible. But before he could act, a huge dark claw wrapped in purple light appeared above him. The claw's power made the air shake as it moved toward him. The man looked terrified as the purple energy surrounded him. Feng, watching from a distance, was shocked, wondering what was happening. He could not believe that someone could transfer an inherited profession to the demon race. He questioned if that was even possible. Suddenly, a demon-like figure whose whole body was covered in purple energy appeared and crushed that injured man. His dark voice echoed in the purple haze. He called that injured man a fool who saw everything, but instead of running, he was rushing to his death. That demon-like figure grabbed his shoulder and thought that if he hadn't been injured by forbidden magic, he would have escaped the city already. And once he transferred his inherited profession to the demon race, he would gain an immortal body. But since he had been delayed for so long, the academy had probably noticed his actions by now. But suddenly the demon's eyes narrowed sharply as it sensed something. At his side, Feng, while trembling, tried to sneak away from there slowly because he had stumbled into a murder scene. He thought that since the demon had not noticed him yet, he should quietly slip away. He began tiptoeing backward, trying to leave without making a sound. But before he could, that demon surrounded by swirling purple energy extended his hand toward Feng, asking if he had ever said Feng could leave. He grabbed Feng by the collar and lifted him into the air. The demon told Feng that the person who had just died was the famous Dean Yu Yi of the Extraordinary Academy. He said the dean died pitifully and asked if he should use Feng's blood and bones as an offering to honor the dead dean. Feng gritted his teeth as purple energy wrapped around him. He thought that this twisted pervert demon's magic power was terrifying. He could not break free at all. Holding his breath, Feng tried to stay calm. He asked himself if there was anything he could use, anything that could drive the demon away. Suddenly he noticed a small farming tool floating nearby, glowing with purple light. Feng extended his hand toward it and used his Farm Tool Mastery Max Skill's derivative skill Farm Tool Summoning. He reached out and grabbed the summon tool. As he gripped it tightly, he spoke in a firm tone. He said that making an offering was the kind of thing one should do personally, not rely on someone else to perform. Saying that, he struck the demon's hand with full power, telling the demon that he would descend to the 18th level of hell. Feng's attack injured the demon, who let go of him. The demon looked shocked, saying this was impossible. He could not understand how the kid, who clearly had a simple farmer profession, managed to injure him. As Feng broke free from the demon's hand, he backed away. To fight back, he looked around and saw a fallen tool on the ground near that dead man. He reached forward quickly and grabbed the object, which looked like a lantern-type device glowing with purple light. Feng activated that lantern, and a huge blue beam of energy shot toward the demon. The beam struck the demon with overwhelming force. To defend, the demon gathered purple energy. A dark, swirling sphere formed in front of him, with many purple tendrils stretching out like roots in the air. The impact caused a massive explosion of purple and blue energy. Dust filled the air. When the smoke began to clear, the demon stood again. His armor cracked, his expression filled with rage. But before that demon could attack, strange purple spinning shapes appeared in the air above Feng. Purple markings circled around him from every direction. The demon immediately recognized those shapes and, in frustration, said it was the array dancer's marking formation. That demon crouched low as purple energy swirled around him. He glared forward with sharp eyes and said that if he could not escape, he would simply possess Feng's body and leave. Purple energy wrapped around the demon's body as he charged at Feng with full speed, giving Feng no time to even react. Feng let out pained sounds as the demon entered his body. The swirling energy closed around his body, pulling him toward the dark figure. Inside Feng's mind, the demon smirked and told Feng that even though he had the lowest profession, his talent was still decent, and he should feel lucky to become his vessel. Hearing that, Feng laughed nervously. Blue energy circles moved around him as he spoke. He said that he had been training since childhood without skipping a single day, so if the demon wanted to take over his body, he would have to work a little harder. But the demon remained confident. His voice echoed again, saying that inferior was inferior, and his power was something Feng would never reach. And the next second, Feng fell to the ground. Purple chains of energy wrapped around him tightly. He looked down weakly and said it seemed like luck was not on his side this time. His hand slowly reached out toward a knife lying just within his reach. As his fingers stretched toward it, Feng grabbed it and raised the sharp knife in his hand while dark purple energy surrounded him. His eyes were firm as he told the demon that they should both go down together happily. Hearing that, the demon became alarmed. He tried to stop Feng, asking what he was doing, but the next second, Feng stabbed himself hard in the stomach. Blood burst out as he held the knife tightly. He shouted that even if they both perished together, he would never give up his body. Feng's vision started to fade. In his thoughts he spoke to his father, saying he did not want to go over there and get scolded. His body fell to the ground. His eyes were closed, and purple energy wrapped tightly around him. But suddenly, a glowing golden light formed from his chest. The light grew brighter and brighter, spreading around him. That demon stared at the glow with fear and confusion. He wondered what the dazzling light was and asked himself if Feng's magic power was erupting. The next second, a blinding golden light burst open in the sky. The demon below looked up at it with shock as the golden beams spread out in all directions like glowing branches. Then that light wrapped around the demon's body. He stepped back in fear. His voice shook as he shouted that this could not be happening. He shouted that it was impossible. But more golden strands tightened around him. They spun faster and faster, forming a thick cocoon of golden lines around his entire body. The cocoon glowed even brighter, twisting with great force. In the next moment, a violent blast erupted from inside it. Purple power and shattered pieces flew out as something inside was destroyed. At that time, a purple system window appeared in the darkness. It displayed a message congratulating Feng, saying he had acquired a new talent, inherited profession, Necromancer. Then sometime later, Feng's eyes snapped open in shock while he was lying on the ground. He stared at his hands and his wounded clothes. With disbelief in his voice, he said he was still alive. Feng checked his body in confusion as he spoke. He said he could still control his own body, and wondered if the demon trying to possess him had failed. He sat on the ground with a calm face and opened his system status window. A glowing purple screen floated in front of him, and he read the information on it. Feng looked at the glowing screen with a serious expression as he read the details of his new abilities. His name was written on it along with his profession, Spirit Farm Master, Mutated/Unique. He looked at the screen with a calm and curious expression. Then he scrolled to another panel that showed the full list of his status information. His name was Lin Feng, profession, Spirit Farm Master, which was mutated and unique. He was level 1 with 300 strength, 300 constitution, 100 agility, 110 magic power, 100 spirit, and 300 luck points. His skills were rapid land clearing, efficient planting, rapid harvesting, yield increase, farm tool mastery at max level, undead affinity passive, transcendent growth basic, undead summoning basic, and soul extraction passive. Feng stared at the screen closely. His eyes widened as he realized that his level had reset to 1, but all his maxed-out farmer attributes were still there. Looking closely, he found that his magic power had increased as well because of that demon's soul force. With this, he realized that once he leveled up again, his attributes could break past the old limits of the farmer class. But he looked annoyed as he read the list of new skills. Among them, he noticed the undead summoning. He muttered that he could actually summon undead, but he hoped it would not summon that guy. Feng activated his farming skill, and in his left hand green energy swirled around his fingers. In the next moment Feng raised his right hand and used the other power he was feeling before. This time purple lightning-like energy wrapped around his fingers. He stared at it with shock, watching the power rise through the air. Then Feng combined both of those energies and saw green and purple energies mixing inside his hand. He slowly realized what was happening. The farmer's magic power was merging together with the undead magic power. His face turned tense. He closed his eyes for a moment as he understood that something inside him had changed. He saw his glowing profession chart filled with symbols. He saw a green calm chart, and then he saw another chart releasing violent purple lightning. His profession tree was forming new branches. With a worried look, he realized that his profession tree had split. He had not changed classes. He had gained an additional profession. Feng stared at it in disbelief. He recognized one of the symbols of that purple chart and understood what it meant. That demon who entered his body earlier was actually an awakener of a legendary inherited profession, Necromancer. He looked at that demon's purple figure lying on the ground and wondered in disbelief if this guy was a necromancer. The profession tree continued glowing. Purple electricity ran across it. Feng looked at his own hand again. A swirling green-purple power pulsed inside his palm. He could feel that the power still did not belong to him. He became anxious. He knew that if he couldn't tame this energy and fully turn it into his own power, something dangerous would happen. His farmer profession would collapse, disappear, and his consciousness might be devoured by that demon again. Feng covered his face embarrassed. He glanced at the profession tree and thought that the yellow color on his own farming icons looked dirty and earthy. Feng stood inside a glowing purple magic circle. Purple runes floated around him as he raised his hand and activated the skill Undead Summoning. Right after that, purple energy cracked the ground as the space around him shook. Broken pieces of the ground floated into the air as purple lightning hit the necromancer and the human he killed before. The purple energy swirled wildly as something began to appear inside the circle. Two figures slowly formed from the purple light. One had a body shining like a pale blue phantom. He was Yue, level 1 undead sage. The second figure appeared glowing bright purple with sharp armor and long hair. He was He Xiao, level 1 undead wild hunt. Feng looked at them and realized it was really that human and the necromancer. Even though their levels had been reset, all their abilities were still preserved and they could level up again. After all that commotion, he knew the law enforcement squad was on the way, so he needed to leave quickly. He immediately turned to leave because he also understood that no one would believe an ordinary farmer could kill two extraordinary individuals. Instead, if anyone found out about his current situation, it could bring serious danger to him. So Feng walked away with his backpack. But he was determined, and said that the urgent priority was to find a place that could give him protection, resources, and high-tier land. He wanted a place where he could test and control his dangerous new power and turn his dad's theories into reality. Then one day later, Feng went to his family farmland, which was clear and bright. Feng walked along the open fields, looking troubled. He thought about how a full day had passed, yet the necromancer's influence on his profession still had not faded. But leaving that aside, he opened his laptop to watch the news. A man in a suit appeared on the finance channel. He greeted the audience and announced that the day marked the birthday of a veteran agricultural teacher. Back on the farmland, Feng inspected a young plant in his hand. Purple lightning wrapped around his fingers as he examined the sprout closely. He noticed that every crop affected by his new power was turning strange. Around him, the mutated plants grew unnaturally. Green vines thickened, stretching under a sky filled with purple energy. The stems twisted into complex shapes, forming net-like structures that shimmered under the sun. Soon, one plant swelled into a large cabbage-like bulb. Purple energy pulsed from within its leaves. The bulb shook and then burst open, releasing thick smoke. Suddenly, a long dark vine shot out and grabbed a small bird mid-flight. Sharp purple spikes rose from the plant as the bird struggled in the air. Feng looked at it in shock. His mouth hung open as he stared at the monstrous plants spreading across the field. He raised his voice in disbelief, wondering what he was even looking at. Panic crept into his face as he realized the danger. If people saw these strange creations, he feared they would mistake it for a demon invasion. Feng immediately grabbed a shovel and started digging, saying that he needed to dispose of the mutated crops as fast as possible. He stared at the cabbage he had just disposed of, and thought about how his new magic power had caused terrifying mutations in ordinary plants. He wondered if by guiding this power properly, he could use it to grow crops on purpose. Thinking about it, he believed that if he learned to control this power, he might create the special plant varieties his father had imagined but never succeeded in cultivating. He imagined growing high-value crops that could raise a person's profession level. While he was thinking all that, urgent news suddenly appeared on the television. A serious-looking news presenter announced that inherited profession holder Necromancer He Xiao had started a rebellion the previous day and had killed Dean Yueye. The anchor stated that He Xiao's crimes were severe. He also said that anyone with information would be rewarded, and helping him in any way would be treated as a crime. Feng watched the screen quietly. He thought to himself that things had unfolded exactly as expected. He reminded himself that he must never let anyone find out he possessed the necromancer's undead power. He looked around at the equipment stacked against the wall and thought that he needed to give proper names to his undead servants so they could pass inspections. Otherwise there would be trouble. Suddenly an idea popped up in his mind, his eyes lighting up as if he had just come up with a clever idea. He said that he would simply call his undead servants farm servants, because his profession panel already listed him as a spirit farm master. To him it sounded completely normal for a farm master to have a few servants. Just as he was thinking, the news reporter announced that, in order to deal with growing demon pressure, the Extraordinary Academy was expanding its enrollment. The reporter explained that anyone who passed the assessment would receive resource support from the Academy, and would even be given private estates capable of producing high-tier crops along with special subsidies. The reporter added that enrolled students would be able to hire farmers to help them grow high-recovery crops. Hearing this, Feng thought that the Academy's land was safe, fertile, and well supported with resources. He realized that this was exactly what he needed right now. He thought about his own situation. His necromancer identity was a dangerous secret, like a ticking time bomb. But Spirit Farm Master, to everyone else that was just a harmless farmer. He told himself that he had to get into the academy no matter what. Then some days later, at the Extraordinary Academy Registration Plaza, inside the registration hall, a row of examiners in black suits sat behind a long desk. One of the men asked for the next applicant's information. He looked up and said in a flat tone that they needed the applicant's name, age, awakened profession, and level. Feng stepped forward. He carried his backpack and calmly stated that he was 18 years old and that his profession was Spirit Farm Master, Level 1. Hearing that, one of the examiners repeated the words Spirit Farm Master with confusion. He scanned the documents in his hand and frowned. He said he had never heard of that profession and assumed it was another non-combat job trying to sneak in. He told Feng to release his profession aura. Feng lifted his hand and a green aura formed around it, swirling like spiritual energy. The examiner stared at it with disdain. He leaned back unimpressed and called it the garbage aura of a farmer profession. He waved dismissively and told him not to waste his time, then shouted for the next applicant. Nearby students began laughing loudly. One mocked the name Spirit Farm Master, asking if Feng had made it up himself. Another joked that it was hilarious for a level 1 farmer to even think about applying. They told him to go back to farming. More voices joined in, saying that Instructor Li was right and that someone like Feng would only drag down the school's standards. They said they wouldn't even hire him to work their own fields. But Feng stood facing them without reacting. He looked toward Instructor Li and spoke steadily. He explained that his profession was a mutated profession. He asked the instructor to give him a chance. He added that his fundamentals were solid and that he would not disappoint. But the instructor grew angry and shouted that solid fundamentals meant nothing for someone who was only level 1. He said a level 1 person couldn't possibly have any real foundation. Then he ordered the security guards to throw Feng out. Hearing that, Feng stepped forward calmly and reminded the instructor of the rules. He said the recruitment notice clearly stated that all professionals were allowed to take the test. He warned the instructor to be careful, saying he might even report him. Feng then held up his phone. With a smug look he pretended to call the supervision bureau and said there was a teacher refusing to let him take the academy exam. Hearing that, the instructor panicked. He rushed forward and grabbed the phone from Feng's hand. His face twisted in anger as he shouted at Feng. He threatened him, saying that if Feng dared to report him he would make him regret it. He also said he didn't believe a level 1 farmer could ever pass the exam. Nearby students whispered to each other. Some said that even if Feng was a farmer-type profession, the instructor's attitude was too much. Others said Instructor Li's behavior seemed excessive. One of them mentioned hearing that the instructor failed a promotion exam and could only work at the admissions office now. Hearing them talking, the instructor shouted loudly at everyone. He told anyone who didn't want to take the test to get lost, his voice full of irritation as the crowd watched. Then sometime later, the group began walking behind the instructor. Feng followed among the other students. Soon they arrived at a huge building covered with giant twisted wooden roots. Many people stood outside it. The instructor looked back and spoke, telling Feng that he could still admit defeat now if he wanted. But Feng walked forward calmly and thanked the instructor for leading the way. The entrance was covered with wooden boards marked with warning signs. 2 glowing portals appeared on the ground, and Feng stepped toward them with the others. Inside the structure, Feng flew through the air, bouncing between the thick wooden roots. He managed to land on one of the roots and caught his balance. Feng narrowed his eyes and said that it was time to let the horned rabbits experience the terror of industrialized farming. He then sat down and pulled out a jar filled with orange powder. With a confident smile, he explained that this carrot essence powder was his newest creation. According to him, it could easily lure even level 20 mighty rabbits, so dealing with these low-level horned rabbits would be simple. He said it was a piece of cake. He then knelt on the ground, sprinkling the carrot essence powder carefully over the soil. A thin trail of powder spread out around him as he worked. Then immediately carrots grew on the ground. A few minutes later, a small pink-horned rabbit appeared. It sat happily among the grass with several carrots lying in front of it, looking excited as it stared at the food. But suddenly, Feng's powerful undead, covered in dark purple energy, rushed forward. Their attack hit the rabbit instantly, knocking it away with a burst of lightning-like force. Feng stood before his 2 summoned warriors. One was dark and sharp with blue and black armor, the other wrapped in glowing purple energy. He told them that waiting for rabbits was too slow and instructed them to listen carefully. He ordered both of them to make sure no one else saw them and to kill every horned rabbit that had been lured nearby. He looked determined and said they should kill as many as possible. Right after that, the 2 undead warriors burst out with bright blue and purple energy, shooting forward through the giant wooden roots. The purple undead used its massive sword and cut down many horned rabbits in one slice. Meanwhile, many horned rabbits flew into the air, trapped inside glowing blue bubbles. The dark blue armored undead floated among them, controlling the swirling energy around the captured rabbits. And then, with a flick of his finger, he killed all of them. Feng watched them and whispered to himself that the 2 undead following him were still incredibly strong, even though they were only level 1. He felt he had really gotten lucky. But suddenly, a loud bell rang and a voice announced that time was up. Outside, Examiner Li in a black suit stood before the big tent and ordered all examinees to come out and hand in the rabbit horns they had collected. Students lined up to submit what they gathered. Examiner Lee shouted at each person harshly. Someone who brought 2 horns failed. Someone with 3 also failed. Another person with none was told to get as far away as possible. Some students complained that rabbits were usually easy to find, wondering why they were so rare this time. Another student said that getting 4 horns was decent because many people didn't find even one and would have to wait for the next recruitment. Then Feng stepped forward. Examiner Lee looked at him with annoyance and called him trash, saying he probably didn't have a single horn and should hand over whatever little he had. But instead of answering, Feng raised his hand, and a glowing green magic circle formed around his fingers as he opened his inventory with a confident smile on his face. The next moment, a huge wave of pink-horned rabbits came crashing into the tent like a tidal flood. Dozens upon dozens of fluffy bodies piled up, burying the rude examiner under them until only his arms and legs stuck out. Other students stared in shock as the rabbits kept tumbling forward, filling the entire space. Feng stood calmly in the background, watching the chaos he had created. Examiner Lee and the staff member beside him looked at those rabbits in shock. Feng smiled slightly and told them that he had a total of 500 horned rabbit horns. He politely asked if they wanted to count them. The examiner's face twisted in disbelief. He stuttered in panic and accused Feng of cheating. But suddenly, the teaching director appeared. He stepped forward with a stern expression and scolded the examiner, asking how someone his age could still bully a child. The examiner froze and nervously asked why the director was there. The director said that if he hadn't come, all of his pet rabbits would have been wiped out by people with no professional ethics. The director then looked at Feng and told him that he had passed the preliminary test. Hearing that, Feng bowed deeply toward him and thanked him for being fair. But when the director saw Feng's face, he got shocked. He stared closely at Feng and said that Feng gave him a familiar feeling and asked if Feng knew why. Hearing that, Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. A tiny bead of sweat slid down his cheek. He stayed silent, but his expression showed clear unease. He walked back as his thoughts surfaced. He wondered if he had been exposed. His face hardened with worry as he looked ahead, unsure of what the director had figured out. The teaching director stood in front of Feng with a calm expression. He looked down at Feng and asked what his relationship was with Professor Lin Xie. Hearing that, Feng's eyes shifted slightly. He sighed, thinking to himself that it seemed the director hadn't discovered his class ability. Feng then relaxed and calmly said that Lin Xie was his father, and asked if the director knew him. Hearing that, the director's expression softened. He leaned forward with interest and said that Feng was the son of an old friend. Judging from the situation, he assumed Feng was planning to enroll in the school. The director then asked if there were any difficulties and, as his uncle, offered to pull some strings for him. But before he could continue, a woman with long pink hair stepped forward. She wore glasses and a white dress. She coughed and told the director that everyone was watching. Hearing that, the director turned around and saw a group of students standing behind him, staring and whispering among themselves. The director muttered that he was only expressing his thoughts. He then looked back at Feng and said that he had some business to handle. He promised that once Feng enrolled, he would personally show him around the school. The director walked away, and the next second his body was surrounded by swirling smoke and he disappeared. Feng watched him leave, a bead of sweat trailing down his cheek as he wondered why the teaching director gave off such unreliable vibes. Then that pink-haired teacher stood in front of the gathered students. She raised both arms and announced that the students who passed the prelims should follow her. She then told the ones who didn't pass not to be discouraged, promising that there would be more chances next time. The scene then shifted to a large meeting room inside the Extraordinary Academy's solar branch. Several people in suits sat around a long table while a man at the front prepared a briefing. A man with long hair stood before a large display board filled with silhouettes and images. He explained that Dean Yue and He Xiao had gone missing at the same time. He said Dean Yue had likely discovered He Xiao's secret and had been spotted during the pursuit. He continued, saying the two eventually perished together, but there was still an unknown mastermind who had taken He Xiao's legacy talent. With growing excitement, he declared that if they found the person who took the undead talent, they would uncover the truth behind everything. He pointed at the display board and insisted this had to be the answer. Hearing him, another man grabbed his head in frustration. He told the excited man, named Tuka, that they understood he wanted to earn merit, but asked him to stop making brainless guesses. Hearing him, Tuka slammed the table. His voice shook with anger as he shouted that none of them believed him. He warned them to just wait, because he would definitely find the evidence. Across from him, the two people seated at the table stared back nervously, sweat dropping down their faces. As Tuka left the room in anger, a woman asked her companion if it wasn't bad to let Tuka leave like that, since he was connected to the Duke. Hearing that, the man turned to her in surprise. But suddenly the teaching director stepped forward through swirling white energy. He said it was better that the troublemaker was gone because the Solar Academy existed to train real elites, not to give out empty positions. The director then explained that a mission had been issued from above. Once He Xiao was found, he must be killed on sight. He asked if the two officers understood. The woman hesitated and asked what they should do if He Xiao was already dead. The director looked away and said that maybe He Xiao had changed his appearance, so anyone who used necromancer skills, he said coldly, would be wiped out completely. Meanwhile, in the mission hall of the Extraordinary Academy, many students gathered under the bright lights. A glowing blue portal floated behind the podium, casting light across the room as students chatted and waited. Then suddenly that pink-haired teacher came out of the portal and stood at the podium and began announcing the mission. She stated that the re-examination task required all new students to clear a level 5 special dungeon called the Magic Horned Beast Lair, located outside the city. She also announced that the time limit for the mission was only 3 hours. Hearing her, the crowd in front reacted with shock. Some students panicked, saying they were only level 4 or 5, wondering how they could possibly finish such a dungeon in such a short time. One boy asked if anyone could actually do something that difficult. Another said grinding down the final boss might be possible, but completing everything within 3 hours seemed too hard. The pink-haired instructor smiled calmly. She told them that they were not required to clear it solo. She explained that they were allowed to form parties, but each team could not exceed 5 members. After forming a group, they had to return and register their starting time. Hands immediately shot up throughout the hall. Some shouted that their team of 4 needed one strong frontline warrior. Others called out that they were elemental mages with explosive damage. A girl introduced herself as Zhou Nanliang and asked if any strong seniors would be willing to carry her. Among the lively crowd, Feng stood off to the side, carrying his backpack. He looked down at a glowing system screen in front of him, reading the mission details displayed on it. While Feng was standing quietly, suddenly a pair of red high-heeled boots stepped toward him. Feng lifted his head slightly, noticing someone approaching. A pink-haired girl with twin buns stood in front of him, smiling warmly. She introduced herself as a level 7 magic class student. She told him she had watched his prelims and saw how he managed to kill so many magic-horned rabbits. She said he must be very amazing and politely asked if she could team up with him. Feng listened calmly. In his thoughts, he noted that a level 7 student was definitely strong enough to solo the dungeon. He thought that if he were still just a farmer class, he would happily accept such an invitation. But his necromancer abilities absolutely could not be exposed, so he needed to avoid teaming up. He rubbed the back of his head with a relaxed smile and told her he preferred acting alone, gently refusing her offer. Hearing that, the girl kept her pleasant expression and wished him a smooth clear. She then turned and walked away in her red heels. Feng also walked off in the opposite direction, ready to face the mission alone. He went to that pink-haired instructor and leaned over the counter. When she heard that he wanted to go alone, she told him that this dungeon's difficulty wasn't low, but Feng said it was fine and asked her to give him the mission directly. Next, she handed him a scroll. As she did, she guessed that he wanted to solo the dungeon for its special solo reward, the Black Bear Gallbladder. She explained that the reward was a huge boost for low-level students like him, but warned that he still needed to understand his limits. Feng accepted the scroll with a small smile and thanked her for the reminder. The scene then shifted outside the Magic Horned Beast Lair dungeon. A massive portal shaped with jagged bone-like structures swirled with bright blue energy. Several academy staff members stood guard in front of it. Feng walked toward them. One staff member stepped forward and asked where his teammates were, but Feng replied that it was just him. Hearing that, both staff members looked at him with concern. One of them told him that a level 5 dungeon was too dangerous for a single person and advised him to find teammates before entering. But Feng held the rolled mission scroll in his hand and looked straight ahead. He calmly told the examiners that the rules allowed a solo entry. The 2 staff members standing near the dungeon gate whispered to each other. One of them guessed that Feng probably wanted the solo reward, the Black Bear Gallbladder. The other said that Feng had guts, but he should first think about whether he had the strength for it. Left with no choice, they let him go. As the glowing entrance activated, one examiner looked at him again and softly wished him good luck. Inside the dungeon there was a huge cavern filled with countless round eggs of different colors, scattered across the rocky ground and piled between jagged walls. A path led deeper into the lair. Feng walked forward as the blue energy light of the dungeon entrance disappeared behind him. He stepped inside with a calm expression. Immediately, two lizard-like monsters with long tongues crawled toward him from the front. He looked at them quietly and thought to himself that level 3 and level 4 monsters were no threat to him now that he was level 6. Feng summoned his undead, who immediately rushed with flashes of blue and purple energy and killed those two lizard monsters. But suddenly, more monsters rushed toward him. He looked around at their growing numbers and sighed internally. The manual had warned that the dungeon contained many monsters, but seeing this amount in front of him felt like far too many. The Feng stared at a massive cave filled with countless glowing red eyes peeking through the darkness. Lizard monster eggs covered the floor and walls around him. He looked at the sight calmly and said that this was a perfect time to try the new summoning method. A bright surge of purple lightning burst around him as he raised his hand and activated his skill, Undead Summoning. The lightning twisted through the air as monstrous shapes began forming. Moments later, those two lizards who were killed by Feng's undead before turned into lizard undead and appeared before him. Their bodies glowed with blue flames, their forms flickering like shadows as they waited for orders. Standing confidently, Feng pointed forward and commanded them to charge. From afar, the undead rushed out like a storm. Blue and purple energy streaks filled the entire passage, shaking the surroundings. Behind Feng, his two humanoid undead stood on the rocks, watching the advance. Watching those lizard undeads, Feng realized that beast-type undead kept some traits from when they were alive. They were aggressive but had low intelligence and could only follow simple commands. Feng observed them quietly. He noted that they consumed less magic power than others, but he wondered if they could do small chores like carrying water as well as fighting. Feng then sent his humanoid undead too. Those humanoid undead rushed forward, leaving trails of blue and purple light behind them. Both moved with sharp, deadly energy. The purple undead took out his long swords and struck first, swinging his long sword through the air. Powerful purple lightning wrapped around him as he slashed at the flying creatures in front of him. His attack scattered feathers and light everywhere. The blue humanoid undead formed hand signs and cast a spell. Blue energy gathered around him as countless glowing projectiles shot forward like energy balls, trapping those flying bird-like monsters. Watching those humanoid undead, Feng realized that they had higher wisdom. They could use the skills they had when they were alive and fought with more flexibility. Feng smiled with his hands on his hips, thinking that in the future he could let them handle chores like weeding and fertilizing the fields. By now, Feng's lizard undead had finished killing. Feng raised his hand and used his undead summon skill again. Sharp spear-like streams of magic shot outward as several lizard-shaped monsters' dead bodies blasted with necromancy energy. Suddenly, a bright system window appeared in front of him. It displayed a message saying he had leveled up to level 7. Now behind him many lizard and bird undead emerged. Their bodies burned with blue flame and their eyes glowed sharply as they floated around him. Feng looked calm and simply said that the efficiency was not bad. Feng then walked forward through the tunnel and reached a large chamber. Feng was amazed to see that he had reached the boss room in just half an hour. Suddenly, a loud metallic crack echoed as thick chains snapped apart. The ground shook as a giant bear-like monster came out of that massive cave. Its eyes glowed white, and chains still hung from its body while it roared across the chamber. Feng looked at the boss with a sharp expression. He said that since this was the boss, it was perfect for testing overall combat power. He called for all his undead to come out. All of Feng's humanoid and beast undead appeared behind him. Energy swirled around all of them as they lined up at his command. Feng then issued his orders. He told Heishao to handle the frontal containment. He told Yueye to curse and weaken the boss. He instructed the other undead units to attack the boss's joints and its eyes. On his command, all of his undead charged at the giant bear monster standing in front of him. They continuously attacked across its fur as it struggled and roared. In front of it, Feng sat calmly on a mat, a small snack box and his backpack beside him as if he were having a quiet break while the battle raged. He watched the ongoing fight and noted that the coordination of his undead was getting smoother. He was eating grapes, and system notification points popped up saying his magic power had recovered by 666 points, and it kept increasing as he ate more and more grapes. Then Feng's purple undead lunged at the chained boss. The boss monster swung its claws, but it did no damage to the purple undead, and it got closer to the boss. The purple undead collected huge amounts of lightning energy in his hand and punched the boss monster. His punch was so powerful that the whole ground exploded with a huge explosion. It was a massive burst of energy that swallowed the monster in blinding light. Immediately, a system notification appeared in front of Feng, showing that he had leveled up again and became level 8. Just as the bear monster died, a pile of glowing reward pouches appeared on the ground, shining with warm golden light. Feng immediately crouched down and examined one of the rewards in his hand. It was a strange red organ floating above his palm. Looking at it, he frowned in disappointment. He commented that the reward only increased his constitution by 10 points. To him, that was useless, nowhere near the improvement he could get from the supercrops he grew himself. But suddenly another system notification popped in front of him. It stated that the system was calculating the dungeon rewards. It confirmed his current classes, Farmer and Necromancer, and would distribute rewards for both. Immediately, 2 golden chests emerged before him, glowing with brilliant light. Feng was shocked to see them and realized that the dungeon settlement had actually given him 2 sets of rewards. He wondered if it was because he had dual classes. Then a sudden idea flashed through his mind, and a confident smile formed on his face. He said that if dungeon settlements could give double rewards, then there might also be a way to manipulate the crops he planted to receive even more benefits. Then after clearing the dungeon, Feng left the dungeon. As he walked out, everyone there, all the hunters, were shocked to see him. One of them muttered in shock, asking if he had really finished the dungeon alone. 2 of the hunters whispered among themselves, their voices filled with doubt. One shouted that it was impossible. Everyone knew how dangerous the inside of that cave was. There was no way he had cleared it alone. He claimed that Feng must have hidden inside just to save face and never gone deeper. Another hunter added that it didn't make sense. His clothes were spotless. There was no way someone that clean had fought through a swarm of magic beasts. But Feng didn't care what they said. He went to the mission center and handed over the mission scroll to that pink-haired teacher, saying he was there to hand in the mission. The pink-haired teacher checked the dungeon scroll in her hands, and a green confirmation mark appeared on the screen, confirming that he had completed the mission. Seeing that, the pink-haired teacher's eyes widened in shock. She couldn't believe that he had actually passed, and that he had done it completely solo. Fudge smiled softly. His expression remained composed, confident, and quietly satisfied with his achievement.